This is February 13th, 1985. This is Joe Todd, an interview with Mr. Albert Ashlock. Hey, sir, where were you born?
I was born in Laverne.
Laverne?
Yes.
Hey, and when's your birthday?
May the 1st. I was born in
1925. Who's your father?
He was Bunk Ashlock or Albert Ashlock.
And your mother?
Bessie.
And what was her maiden name?
Kimbrough.
Kimbrough. Kimbro?
G-H, I believe.
G-H. Where were your parents from?
Well, they came from Missouri.
Missouri?
Originally.
Yeah. What kind of work did your father do?
Oh, he was car salesman.
And when did they come down to Oklahoma?
I think about 1901.
Did they come down here to Homestead?
Well, his father did.
Yeah.
My dad's father did.
What was his name, your grandfather?
Jess.
And did he stake a homestead?
Yes, up at north of Adobe, about 2 miles.
Mm-hmm. Your grandfather a farmer?
Yes.
Did your father ever talk about growing up on the farm, like the early days?
About growing up on the farm?
Yeah.
Well, yes, he talked some.
Mm-hmm. Okay. When you were, did your father do any farming around here, around Laverne?
Well, he did some farming, but later then he moved town, sold automobiles, and done a little work.
Yeah.
Like that.
When did your father move to Laverne?
Well, he lived here earlier, and then he moved out north of town on a farm. I remember when I was 5 years old, we lived here in town, and then later we moved out on the farm, and then we went over to Buffalo moved over there for a while, and then we came back over here, I think in 39.
Mm-hmm. Where were you when Black Sunday hit?
Oh, I was in Missouri.
Oh, in Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You weren't here for the big dust storm then?
No, it was real hazy up there in Missouri.
So I guess the dust even went that far east.
Well, it was in the air. You could tell that there's having a storm down here.
What part of Missouri were you in?
Well, that was Jennerville. That was about 54 miles northeast of St. Joe.
Were you down here for the other dust storms?
So I was in several of them.
What caused those dust storms?
Well, wind erosion, and it starts, if it starts way off, then it just keeps accumulating, and the dust getting there just like clouds, and then just kind of roll in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen it so bad you couldn't see very far.
How did you have trouble breathing in those dust storms?
Well, it didn't bother me so much, but that's one reason we was in Missouri. My sister was having problems with the dust, and so we went up there for Missouri for a while, a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You started the school in what year?
Let's see. I went to kindergarten in 30, I guess.
And did you go through high school?
No, I just went to the 8th grade.
8th grade. Got out in what, 38, 39?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Hey. Remember Pearl Harbor Day?
Yes.
What were you doing?
I was in Groover, Texas. I was pitching to a thrash machine.
In Groover, Texas. Wheat harvest?
Well, it was they'd shocked us wheat and this thrash machine went over there. I forget the boy's name. He was from over around Enid, and he was over there thrashing, and several guys with trucks went from here, and I happened to know one of them. And I went over and went to work.
Whose land were you working on?
Well, I don't remember whose land it was on, but we stayed over we slept over in an old church house, the windows out, and but I remember that Sunday that they bombed Pearl Harbor. We didn't work that day, and some of them went to town and come back and was telling us that.
What was your first reaction?
Well, I just figured we was in war.
Mm-hmm. When did you join the Army?
Well, I was drafted in 43.
43.
I think I went 27th August 43.
And when did you take basic?
Well, at Camp Walters in Mineral Wells, Texas.
How long was basic down there?
Well, 17 weeks, but they helped me over. And then I went over to Paris, Texas, and took some advanced training, and then
You were at Camp Maxey?
yes.
What kind of training?
Oh, they just give us about the same as we'd had. Only
What, just infantry training or what?
yes, mostly. And then I went over seas then.
Where was your point of embarkation?
Well, we went to Italy. We left from Newport News, Virginia, and went to Italy.
Where'd you land?
Naples.
Mm-hmm. Anything happen on the trip over?
No, we had a storm or two, but when
Was the Army still at Anzio when you got over there?
well, yeah, I believe they was. We went. I went out to north of Naples to a replacement depot there, and then I was there quite a while, and then we went to France, and went to a replacement depot up there. I believe it's Dijon, France. But we went to Marseille first, and then we went on up there and then I went to the 45th Infantry in Company L 157.
Mm-hmm. How far up in Italy did you go?
Well, we never did. I just went north of Naples. I never done any fighting in Italy.
Did you get to Pisa?
No, it's just out of Naples
Okay.
way there. The replacement depot. I got the name of it.
And then where did you join the 45th?
I joined them in France, northern France.
When's the first time you saw the Germans?
Oh, on the way up. And let's see, on the way up, I saw some prisoners, you know. And I saw some. They put us on one of those little, on one of them trains, those box cars taking us up there. And we seen some dead Germans, you know, along the track there. One place, I don't remember where. But
When's the first time you went to combat?
well, I don't remember the exact date, but I believe it was August 44, I believe. Or, I mean, October 44.
Were you still in France then?
Yes.
What happened that day?
Oh, the day we got to the front line?
Yeah.
Well, we got up there and they always told me not to volunteer for anything. And I waited and till they just two of us left and they needed some, so I went to machine gun squad. And we was up on line just 35 days and then we got to go back. And we was getting ready to go back to the front again. It had us, I don't remember how long we was back. We was back a week. Or maybe 10 days, I don't remember. But anyway, we was burning, they told us to destroy all of our letters, you know, and so they built a fire out there behind. And we was getting ready to go back to the front. Then I decided I'd go to the restroom. Me and my buddy went to the restroom, and when I come back by that fire where we was burning them letters, and I guess it was a hand grenade that exploded. I caught about 11 pieces of shrapnel from that. So I didn't go back, didn't go to the front, and went to the hospital.
How bad were you wounded?
Oh, it wasn't too bad. I had one piece kind of got me in the eye, and had a pack of cigarettes in the left shirt pocket, and a piece went through them and hit a rib, and then I caught some this arm. I caught her. Well, it was about 11 different places, but it wasn't nothing too severe. But they thought my eye was pretty bad, and I did a real bloodshot in there. But I could see out of it all.
How long were you in the hospital?
Oh, I was only in the hospital about a week then, and then they put me in a kind of a convalescent hospital until I was back over there, I guess, a couple of weeks, and then they sent me back. Well, I went up Christmas Eve, I remember. It was on Christmas Eve that I went back.
Christmas Eve?
Yeah.
Where?
Well, we was, let's see, I've been trying to think. Well, we was just 13 miles from the German border. That's where.
Did you get caught up in the Battle of the Bulge?
No, we withdrew. We stayed up there for a while, and then one night we got orders to withdraw. We withdrew 28 miles.
When did you cross into Germany?
Well, let's see. After we withdrew there, then that was was just about a week they moved us over. We replaced the 42nd Rainbow Division. And we went and attacked, and we fought our way up there, and we got surrounded, and I got captured.
You did?
January 20th.
That was 45?
Mm-hmm.
What happened when you were captured?
Oh, they just started throwing shells in on us. And well, they had machine guns set up ahead of us. They pinned us down and started throwing them shells in. And my platoon sergeant, he just told them we'd give up. We'd got her. Well, whenever we went up on this little kind of mountain. Well, it was Alps. Yep, mountains. And they surrounded us. And they had us surrounded about 3 or 4 days before we got orders to fight our way back. Way out of there. And we went in. I mean, we could try to come out just like we went in. I guess that was the shortest distance. And I guess they figured that's what we were going to do. And we come off that hill, started up that other one, and then they had them machine guns set up.
What part of, were you still in France or then, or were you in Germany?
Well, I think we was right on the border there.
Okay, was it southern France or northern? What?
Well,
you
northern.
Said, okay.
Because I think they said we was 35 miles from the Swiss border there where we were at.
Okay, yep. There by the mountains. Okay. What were you thinking when you were captured?
Well, there's several things you'll see your mind whenever you're captured. I just wondered what they was going to do with us, whether they'd line us up. But they picked me out of the whole bunch to interrogate me. And they was marching the rest of them off, and they asked me how old I was, and I told them I was 19. And they thought I was 25.
What else did they ask you? What?
Oh, they want to know when I left New York. And I said, well, I didn't leave New York. Well, they said, when did you leave Newport News, Virginia? They knew, I mean, that's where I left from. So they must pretty well knew.
Mm-hmm. Did they treat you pretty good?
Oh, not too awful good. They didn't feed very well.
They didn't?
They did. When we first was captured, we got treated pretty good. And then further back, we got the worst treatment we got.
Where'd they take you?
I think there was it's an old institution. I think it's Hepanine, I believe. It had it. And it was kind of they made a hospital kind of out of it. And then we went from there. Let's see, I went to a regular Stalag. I forget the name of it.
Where was it located? Any idea?
Well, I don't know how far it was from where we were at. I think maybe that was Hepanine, where the Stalag wasn't. But anyway, they worked us on the railroad there, and one day our planes come over and they said, well, you stay out there, that's your plane. But they took off, so we did too. After they took off, we run over to the other side and took cover.
When they moved you by train or by truck?
Well, when up the front line, they moved us back by truck. Old charcoal burners for ways, and then So whenever they was getting ready to move us there out of that regular prison camp, they put us on a train.
Were you ever bombed or strafed by the Allies?
Yeah. Yeah, we had 17 men get killed. The officers, they was right up behind the engine. They knocked the engine out, and they said there's 17 got killed.
Mm-hmm. What was prison life like?
Well, it wasn't very good. And when we first got back, they took our clothes for delousing. And we never had any lice, but when our clothes come back, they was full of lice. And I didn't know what it was. I had never seen one until. And then this regular prison, I mean, we got out of this hospital. Then the two of us kind of bunked together. We had 2 blankets, and we had a little pile of hay, you know, to sleep on. That's the bed. But
What kind of buildings did you live in?
oh, they must have been some kind of. Well, they might have been barracks at one time or something, because there was several of them. The Russians was right north of us in this one, regular prison.
What was the food like in the prison?
Well, they didn't. There at the hospital, they fed us. 10 loaves. 10 men to a little loaf of that black bread for breakfast, and had tater peel and soup for supper, and for dinner and supper.
What was your average day like in the prison camp? Like, what time would you get up?
Well, they'd come in there and wake us up about 6, give us some scorched barley coffee. You couldn't hardly drink that. And then about 9 o'clock, they'd give us that bread. And when we first got there, they'd give you 2 spoons of marmalade, but they finally took that away, and then they put 8 men to a loaf of bread.
Mm-hmm. Did they have roll call there?
No, they didn't have roll call. I guess they counted us probably.
How did the guards treat you, the prison guards there?
Well, I never had any trouble with them, but I've seen them mistreat 1 or 2.
What'd they do to them?
Oh, they kind of used a rifle on them, you know, trying to use the butt of the rifle and kind of worked them over.
Mm-hmm. Anyone try to escape?
Well, not there.
Mm-hmm. What time did they let you go to bed?
Well, you could go to bed anytime you wanted to. If you wasn't working, why you could. You generally lay down 5, 6 o'clock, you know,
Mm-hmm.
7.
If you were working, what would you be doing?
Well, we'd spilling bomb craters on the railroad. That's what we'd do.
Mm-hmm. You said no one tried to escape there. Did
Yeah.
people try to escape other places?
Well, yeah.
Mm-hmm. How long were you in that prison camp?
Well, I was in there till they moved us, and then
When they moved you?
well, let's see, it was about, I guess about 64 days after I was captured.
Mm-hmm. How many men were in that prison camp?
I have no idea, because there's Russians and there's all nationalities.
Mm-hmm. Did the Germans treat the Russians and Americans the same way, or?
Well, I think pretty well the same way.
When they moved you, where'd they take you?
Well, I don't know where they was going with us. We never got there.
What happened?
Well, I left. Me and this other boy. And
How'd you escape?
well, we got off that train.
How'd you do it?
Oh, about 2 o'clock in the morning when it went to moving after it knocked the engine out. Why, we was thinking about trying to get off while it was stopped, but we seen they had guards on there, and I said, the time we'll get off is when it starts moving. That was about 2 o'clock in the morning, so two of us got off.
What'd you do?
Oh, we tried to make it back to lines. But we finally got with some Indians from India, or we probably would have never made it.
Where'd you meet up with the Indians? How'd you make contact with them?
Well, I'd been in this one Indian. Well, there's two of them in this here kind of this hospital. Well, yeah, when I was first captured, that's what they took us to the hospital, and then they just kept taking us on back. And this one place, it was kind of a convalescent hospital where they deloused us and everything. And that's where I got acquainted with these two Indians from India. And one of them speak good English, you know. And we visited, and he said we'd get more to eat if we go to a regular stall, so we kind of volunteered to get out of there so we could go on. I'd had my feet frozen. That's one reason I was in the hospital, and I thought I had a piece of shrapnel on my back when they said anybody was hurt or had anything wrong with them fall out over on one side. I sure thought I'd been hit. I guess a piece of that metal just fell down on my back and kind of burnt. That's the way it did when I caught that shrapnel before, you know, it just burned.
And you made contact with the Indians after you escaped from the train?
Well, we run on to them. They'd been marched out of the same place we'd been, we'd both left in the same place, but they'd been marched out of there. We rode the train, and they'd had guards on them, and their guards took off for some reason, I don't know. And so they said to stay with us and we'd get to the line.
When was this? What?
Oh, I don't remember what day it was.
Was the war coming to an end?
Well, it was getting pretty close, you know. That's the reason why they was moving us out of there. They could hear it. We could hear our artillery fire. And so, I don't even know how far we'd went on that train. They loaded us after night, and but I'd seen a map. I'd seen what direction to go, so that's the way I hit it.
And how long did it take to get back to the lines?
I think it was about the fourth day. I think it's about 2 days before we run into these Indians. And then we made our own back.
When did you first see the Americans?
Well, we had to go through the edge of town with them Indians, and what we done, we just kind of, like we was German soldiers, you know, we just kind of, and so then we went on across this bridge, and we hadn't been there very long, and here come a Jeep. He stopped, and And then here come a truck, and my buddy and I, we got on this truck stopped and picked us up, and I kind of fell behind a little, and they picked us up, and we went up there. They was going after some prisoners, some German prisoners, and so we rode up with them, and we stayed all night up there where they picked them prisoners up, and then they got us ride back the next day.
What was your reaction when you saw the Americans?
Oh, you couldn't hardly believe it.
Where'd they take you back to?
I can't remember those names, those towns. But anyway, then they took us, the next day they took us when we got back, then I had to go to the dispensary. Or at least the Indians, they gave us some clean clothes. We had British clothes on then. And Americans didn't hardly believe that we was Americans. You know, we told them what outfit was at and what state we was from, and where we took our training, and one thing and another. They didn't want to believe us.
Mm-hmm. When did you come back to the States?
Well, I think it was latter part of April, I believe.
April of 45?
Yes.
Did you come into New York?
Yes, I flew in. They flew us back.
Oh, they flew you back. You fly by the Statue of Liberty?
Well, we come in over New York after night, and we had to go on to Delaware and land, and then they could put us on another and flew us up to Mitchell Field, I remember.
Mm-hmm. When you first hit the States, what'd you do?
Oh, when we first hit the States, boy, I'll tell you what, you look out the window and see the American cars. You couldn't hardly believe it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then they asked us what we wanted to eat. They give us anything we wanted to eat. And we got a free telephone call home.
Did your folks know that you'd been taken prisoner?
Yes, well, I think I've been missing in action. I think about the same, a day or two before I called, they got a letter that I was a prisoner.
Mm-hmm. And when were you discharged?
Well, let's see here. I believe it was in October 45.
And then you came back to Laverne?
Yes, but when I got back, the States, they give us I got a choice where I wanted to go. I could go to a hospital closest to me, to home. And I went to Chickasha, and then I just got down there, and I hadn't been there very long, and the doctor asked me how I'd like to have a convalescent furlough. So I got a 60-day convalescent furlough. And I went back and...
Mm-hmm. After you got your discharge, what'd you do?
Oh,
At the hospital.
well, let's see. When I went back to the hospital, and then they sent me to San Antonio. They didn't know that what they was going to do with me then, and we had to do exercise and one thing and another, and then finally they give about everybody else a discharge out there but me. And I was a little young, and they kept moving me over. And one day they called me in and they said, well, we're going to we're going to discharge you. So then I came home.
Come back and start farming?
Well, I come back and I just messed around, done an odd job, and then later I went to farm.
Mm-hmm. You married?
Well, I have been.
Yeah.
I've got 3 children,
Mm-hmm.
a wife and I. We've been divorced about 13 years.
Yeah. Well, what have you done since the Army? Just farm?
Well, no, I drilled water wells for a while. Well, I went to work on a core-doing rig in about 50. And
Mm-hmm.
let's see. And I drilled a few water wells.
How deep's the water table around here?
Well, right here in town, it's shallow. It's only about 15, 20 foot to the water.
Is it good water or is it jippy?
Well, it's pretty good water, but that's the surface water, but you go on down in about 40, 60 foot. You hit another vein down there about 40 foot. It's pretty coarse gravel or coarse sand. Then you go on down and you hit the red bed, well, in the east part of town, about 100 foot or somewhere near there.
Is that good water, that red bed?
Well, most generally your best water is right above your red bed.
Mm-hmm. Is that in the Ogallala aquifer?
Well, I don't know for sure.
I've been hearing the water table's been dropping around here.
Well, it is dropping some. I'm sure. One reason I think is they're doing a little irrigating, around, and these few dry years.
I understand they're trying to figure out how to put the water back in to raise the water table again. How they going to do that? Any idea? Have you heard about that?
Well, I don't know. I think they could. In some areas, they could run back in, but like this river here, I mean, a lot of that seepage go down because that's sand there.
Mm-hmm.
I've always figured, well, it's too shallow the water here, but where they had those around Perriton, one thing or another, where they had those dry lakes, why they could drill a hole and perforate the top of it and put a filter on there or something, just run her down back in the ground.
Mm-hmm. Well, anything else?
Well, I guess that's about it.
Okay. Sir, thank you.
Yeah.